Let's now get to our discussion in studio. Once again, I'll introduce my panel. Delano Kilu is a security expert. We have Patrick Obath from Kenya Daima, as well as Professor Ori Tumbo, who is a political commentator, as we discuss the space for peace in this particular election and just get comments on what they think of the whole process so far. Delano, being a security analyst, there have been a few incidences here and there that have been reported, but how do you analyze the whole process?
From a Protective and Safety Association of Kenya perspective, as Secretary General, my comments are Kenya as a democracy has matured tremendously. And we have witnessed, from a security perspective, excellence in terms of security operations. One of the first things any Kenyan will notice as soon as they enter into the area of the polling station is that things have remained calm by and large. There have been crowds in some particular places, but we have an operation of our joint forces that is comprising the Kenya Police Service, the Administration Police Service, the Department of Criminal Investigations. We also have members of the National Youth Service, as well as some support from some of the other government arms in place that are assisting Kenyans to do their voting. So security, by and large, has remained something that we are monitoring very carefully, but we must congratulate Kenyans as a democracy for really, handling their civic duty in a mature way. This, of course, is by and far the largest elections we have ever experienced in this country. I recall a time when the presidential vote, the winner would have just over 2 million votes. And right now we're talking about almost 19 million people going to the polls, people are peaceful. The atmosphere is, in many cases, very, very heavenly. There have been one or two incidences, one or two little skirmishes, nothing to be majorly concerned about. What we would want to encourage Kenyans, though, is not to go into excess. A lot of Kenyans are also considering that they want to go, now that they've voted, to, drink the night away. And we're saying, let's remain calm and peaceful, let's remain mature, let's hold back until the results are announced properly. We've already had one incident at Total Wayakiwe where somebody was very, very rather drunk and backed up into somebody else's car and drove off. So we encourage Kenyans, let's avoid those kind of behaviors. Okay. Let's avoid excesses. Let's also avoid any political rhetoric or comments at this time. Allow the individual voter to make their decision. Allow them to vote in peace. Right. We also have not had any major, what you'd call major security incident. We have had one incident where tear gas was thrown. A few people in the stampede that was caused thereafter were injured, but those have been taken care of and have been treated. So we do not have any cases as at now of fatalities. And we're happy so far with the security situation in the country. Okay,
Delano. Patrick, with Kenya Daima as a whole initiative, the past few months you have dedicated to preaching peace to Kenyans to come out in large numbers and vote, but do it in a peaceful process. The D-Day is here. What are your thoughts on the process so far since the polls opened in the morning?
From what we've gathered from across the country, basically Kenya is voting peacefully. In the queue this morning where I was, people were greeting each other. There was all sorts of different dialects you could hear in the queue, and everybody was joking with each other. And I think, by and large, that from a lot of the people I've been spoken to, they've actually met exactly the same kind of reaction in all the spaces. But I think the most important one is that in the last 48 hours, since electioneering was stopped, the kind of messages that are coming out from all the politicians is all about peace. And they've actually changed their rhetoric, which was exactly what you wanted to achieve, was to achieve a situation where everybody's talking about, let us not fight each other, let's be together in this election. It is about the election, it's not about me and my neighbor. And that has by and large been achieved. And now we're only waiting to see what happens between now and the time the results have all been announced. And we expect that the same camaraderie that we've seen will continue through that time.
In terms of businesses, because yesterday, speaking to one of our reporters from Kakamega, she said that most business people are holding back their assets because of the levels of uncertainty in the country. How do you assess that whole situation with a business perspective?
I think people are going to be shut down anyway for elections, and it's not unusual that people do that. Even when you have football matches, people close off their premises in that way. I think Kenyans are very brilliant when they sort of want to sort of demonstrate their mood in that situation. So a lot of people have shut down for this period. And depending on the risks that they view from themselves, a lot of businesses are opening tomorrow, others will open the day after. But we think, in our view, that most of the people we've spoken to, business will resume tomorrow as we continue waiting for the results to come out.
Professor Tumbo, 70 days of grueling campaigns have finally culminated to the D-Day, which is today, and we have about 3 hours for the polls to close at 6 p.m. for those who started at 5 p.m. for those who started right on time. How do you analyze the whole process? What are some of the things you've picked out of the whole process since the polling stations were open in the morning?
Thank you, Akisa. In any process, there are major glitches and minor glitches. In this particular one, virtually every glitch has been minor. So to agree with my colleagues, the process has been extremely peaceful. Now, the thing that one could point out in these circumstances is that in the absence of political rhetoric and agitation, Kenyans are behaving normally.
Yeah.
At the moment, nobody, as I went to Moi Avenue Primary School this morning, people who normally argue loudly in drinking places were shaking hands and laughing, saying the day has arrived to Taona Ninani. In other words, they were just talking to each other in a very pleasant way, which means that the genesis of our sometimes violent activities related to politics is due to the political agitation by different parties and in what I consider poor messaging. Very often, certain words are used that shouldn't be used, certain expressions, certain innuendos. In the absence of this, since the political agitation was stopped 48 hours ago, the people are going on their business normally, like Kenyans, not like tribes. So you realize that where we need therapy is for the political class. They need therapy so that they can feed into the ordinary citizen in a way that the ordinary citizen does not feel agitated or offended to react in a particular way. In short, I am proud of what is happening.
Yeah. Looking at the whole security situation, because this few hours since morning, since the polls opened at 6 a.m., we know that the real deal starts when the counting and transmission of results begin. We know the IEBC has about 7 days to prepare and announce results and transmit everything before they announce the presidential results. Between now and when the results will be announced, how do you expect the stakeholders, the IEBC, security forces, the voters to behave in that period?
There are 3 key things, Akisa, that we're expecting, of course, and for Kenyans especially. You've heard from the panel, this very august panel that we have over here, that they have also walked through that experience, and Kenyans have stood in line for quite a number of hours in some cases. But the challenge that now comes as the voting begins, as the voting comes to an end and as the counting begins. Then we go into 3 key areas. One is the concerns from a security perspective. The number one is always fatigue, that the necessary shifts do have to take place and that people have to be rested enough to remain at their alertness levels to protect what is required to be protected. And the number 2 thing, again, which is again related, is nutrition. We expect, of course, from a security perspective, those who are going to work overtime and over hours, and even some counting throughout the night, will need to have particular nutrition. And then the third thing is, of course, the avoidance of any interference with the process that has already been stipulated, and that the process should run. So when we say interference, it's important that all, not just the security agencies, but even the IBC officials, the agents from the political parties, must avoid being emotional in any way. We must remain rational, we must remain mature in order for the process to then complete. We expect that counting in most places is going to take place from 5 p.m. overnight. We know that quite a number of results will be in by tomorrow morning, and we expect that the complete process, as IBC has already stipulated, may take slightly longer than 2 to 3 days to come with the final announcement. But in that time, in that period of time, exactly how we started, we're asking that that be the continuity, that process ends in the same spirit, so to speak, as it has begun. That we don't have incidents, we don't have tempers flaring, and also we would encourage those candidates who find themselves in a lost position to remain calm, not to protest at the counting and tallying centers, and certainly not to incite their supporters to take any activities or actions that would be negative to the outcome of the polls.
This coming days, for you, Patrick, the counting, transmission of results, waiting for the final results to be announced from the business community and from Kenya Daima as well. Are you worried? Are you concerned about the days that will be there? And we know that Kenya gets tensed these times when results are being counted and are being transmitted in a number of areas.
I think, as Prof said earlier on, so long as there isn't a spark put into Kenya, Kenya is okay, right? People will stay at home, they'll listen, they'll wait for results to be announced, and so long as there isn't a spark to say there is a problem, I think Kenyans will basically accept the results as they come out. And seeing what the IEBC has done over the last 2 to 3 weeks in terms of voter education, they have done a fantastic job. They've repeated over and over again what the process is in terms of the voting process. They've also repeated over and over again what will happen in the event that there is a slight hitch, what they will do. And with all the agents present at the different polling stations, and they will know exactly what to look out for. And everything is transparent. It's being done in a room, everybody's sitting in there. And by the end of the day, once they have tallied and they transmit those results, that place is shut. And everything is done. As the numbers begin to be sort of put together and people begin to add up one after the other, obviously there's going to be a certain level of anxiety that comes through as people now say my candidate is going to win or not and so forth. And it'll start obviously within the polling station itself as you find the local politics playing out first. And then as you come up, ramp it up to the national level. By the time we reach the national level, I think people will already have started their celebrations for their local people. And by the time we reach the national level, I think we will be at a point whereby it now relates to the two main candidates as to what kind of rhetoric they're going to bring out. And that is the key thing. And they, I think, from what you've seen in the last couple of days, also realize that it is what they say that will set this country onto a good future or a bad future. So there's a lot that rests on the shoulders of those two people.
But we've also had incidences in a number of areas. We can't turn a blind eye on some of these things we've had. Our reporter from Kayole, specifically Soweto, says that once the media got there, they were shouting, "Thank you very much, watu wa media mmekuja, walikuwa wanatua." And they say that security officers have been packed, a contingent has been packed there. There's no voting going on. There are some issues of agents, the number of agents at a particular polling station. With such things happening, building up on the anxiety, Professor, just how safe and how concerned should we be? Because we know that such things spread over to the other polling stations and polling centers in the country.
In real life, if you get a white bed sheet and you drop one drop of red ink on it, everybody will be talking about the red ink, not about the white sheet. In these particular cases, the incidences that you have highlighted is really a minority. We should be concerned, but not up in arms. We should express our concern that this should be rectified as soon as possible. But let's not run into the trap of over-highlighting this to the extent of creating anxiety, which then escalates and is likely to spill over to other polling stations. However, there is an important lesson to be learned, that there are always elements in any community who opt to do the wrong thing in the right circumstances.
Prof, kindly, could you just hold on to that thought? We're getting back to the discussion. Let's cross